My name is Jeff Goldstein of the Goldstein Law Group in Washington, D.C. We represent franchisees, dealers, and distributors in disputes against franchisors and manufacturers around the country. We discussed in the first part of this series the level of competence of franchisors required under the law and whether there are any laws that would prevent a franchisor from acting incompetently. Today what I'd like to do is move on to some legal theories that would address some of these incompetent decisions that franchisors might make. The legal framework is somewhat straight and forward. However, there are quite a few pitfalls, as one might imagine. One way of attacking franchisor incompetence is to examine it conceptually as a negligence, just as you would a doctor for malpractice, a franchisor failing to meet its duty of care, which is to be a franchisor. Unfortunately, courts have entirely rejected that doctrine, except in very, very small cases, and those are usually not even an alternative for a franchisee bringing suit, and they certainly have no impact on a franchisor meeting minimum level of competency. This is leads to another two possible causes of action, and these focus on the franchise agreement or in the cracks of a franchise agreement, known as the covenant of good faith and fair dealing. And the last would be state-specific laws for franchisees that might address some of the competency issues. However, being out in courts on the front lines many times, I can tell you that the state statutes are more active and offer more protection to franchisees in a termination context, requiring that the franchisor have good faith and also act with a good cause for a termination. There are various monikers and types of language that would address that issue. Primarily, those laws, to the extent they exist, and there are very few of those across the country that you might call relationship laws, are not those that would prevent or require a minimum level of competency on a franchisor. So what are you left with? You're left with cases on the contract and cases that are in the cracks of a contract by the covenant of good faith and fair dealing. The covenant of good faith and fair dealing, over time, every year that goes by, it's eaten up more and more by courts who are very hostile to the concept. It had its heyday maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and franchisees took advantage of it. And each year that went by, franchisors figured out how to put in their franchise agreements language that would render useless franchisees' attempts to use a covenant of good faith and fair dealing. So you've lost a very important tool that would require franchisors to act competently. Now you're down to the franchise agreement itself. And if you take a look at almost any franchise agreement, you'll see duties of franchisor. And honestly, I've looked at several agreements over the last 3 weeks where there might be 2 or 3 paragraphs, half a page in the franchise disclosure document. And if you juxtapose that with the obligations imposed on a franchisee, you'll be shocked, because pages could be 6, 7, 8, 9, and even going to the franchise agreement versus half a page for a franchisor. And the franchisor is supposed to be bringing its knowledge and experience regarding the franchise system to the franchisee. That's what the franchisee is allegedly paying for. Now, when you get to the franchise agreement, as I said, you're going to be tethered to the exact language of the franchise agreement. So where franchisors will say to a franchisee, don't worry, we really provide a lot of training, a lot of marketing, even though it's not even in the franchise agreement. One case will illustrate this quickly, and this is a case where in the franchise agreement, it actually did address a site location requirement by a franchisor. However, even that could have been useless in the franchisees arguing that the franchisor had failed to meet that requirement. I wanted to thank you for taking your time today to listen to this video and the other two in this series regarding franchisor competency. If you have any questions regarding this issue, issues raised by those videos, or other franchise relationship matters, please give me a ring. My name is Jeff Goldstein at the Goldstein Law Group in Washington, D.C. Thank you.